Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for March 14th, 2018, the greatest year of gaming ever. Well, so far, at least for Tim, because we're going to be talking about a lot of really cool stuff today. Before we get to that, Tim Clark is here.
Hello, James.
Global
Hello, fellow
Editor-in-Chief.
kids.
Yeah, it was a fucking crazy end to the week last week.
It was a big old news week. We were talking about it this morning on the team. Just was it Thursday or Friday? Thursday went crazy.
Yeah.
And it was like announcement after announcement. It was like a mini E3 with all the kind of excitement and stress that brings. You're gonna run through, recap the big ones.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna touch on you went up to a special developer and saw a pretty interesting new game.
It was actually my first ever trip inside the hallowed walls of Valve. Before getting there, I kind of imagined I would be like super disappointed, and it would just be like another quite cool open plan office, but with desks that could be wheeled around. But I put up a little photo story yesterday of some pictures I took from their new Bellevue HQ, and it is actually it's like very Valve. It's very cool. They have like a play area with like this giant balloonicorn and all that stuff about like personal trainers at your desk is true. It was a place they just moved into in October, actually. The guy who was leading us around was kind of saying they needed a place which had like kind of much better amenities. They have like all the developers, like kids and families, are invited in every Thursday for like lunch.
Oh, really?
Which, you know,
nice.
I'm very antisocial, so would hate, but it seemed to make them happy.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll be talking about Artifact, the new card game. There's some really important things to kind of talk about in terms of how it's different from the existing
I've predicted
games.
Previously that other new card games could be the ones to steal Hearthstone's throne, but this could be the one.
This could be the one.
Is the one.
All right, well, that sounds good. And then we'll be kind of wish listing, because we are big fans of The Division, I think, especially as it kind of grew over time. It really became the game I think we wanted from the outset.
When you say like fan, you mean I'm an addict of hopeless loot grind shooters.
I think, if we were all to speak frankly, I think that would be true to some extent for all of us. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to hear that The Division 2 was announced, so we're going to kind of run down what we think we should see in The Division 2, or would like to see.
Yeah, I'm going to have to freestyle that.
I got a big old list, so Don't worry, I'll help you out. We'll be running down the news, then taking your questions as always. So
sounds good.
Let's get to it. But let's start off with what we've been playing. Tim, you've actually been playing something else besides the card game.
I've been trying to play a little less Destiny 2, because that is a game that is very much in furlough at the moment. Nothing really happening until they've been talking about the balance. Look how I've managed to still talk about Destiny 2. You like that? They've been talking about the roadmap, but some of the better stuff is not until end of this month, and then the exotic pass in May. So in the meantime, I've been weaning myself off by playing Assassin's Creed Origins, which I never got around to last year. Had meant to. It initially ran a bit jankily on my PC, but I've seemed to. I think maybe my CPU needs. I'm going to say like a bunch of stuff that makes me seem like an idiot. I think my CPU needs upgrading, because that's the one thing in the box that's kind of old. And when I look in Task Manager, like it's up at 98%.
For certain engines and certain games.
Anyways, I found a way around it by like disabling every single thing that isn't Assassin's Creed Origins, including the virus protector, which does real time stuff. So like I'm flying blind just with Assassin's Creed on. And I had to say, like, I am loving it. Like, I've played, even much... Like, I thought I would like it, because Black Flag was my favourite game in the series, and this is by the same team. And although it dispenses with, like, quite a bit of the piracy stuff, there's still some stuff on water. And, like, that world is insane.
Fucking amazing.
They've done a thing where, like, we probably talked about it before on the show, but they did a thing where you can go on this educational tour around Egypt. If you're like a kind of high school kid or whatever, or anyone who's interested in the history of Egyptian antiquity. And I just like what I've been most enjoying is like going off the main quest and just walking around in the world, just going from question mark to question mark, and you're just walking through these like fields of frigging grass, and then like Bayek's just gently touching the reeds as he goes through them, and the sun's glinting, and there's a pyramid in the distance, there's a cat walking past, a little flock of birds out from the fucking trees, there's a I mean, Ubisoft, like, I don't know why This is a tangent.
Okay.
You know how like PETA go after like Mario and stuff, going, "Oh, Mario like shells turtles and wears them. Like, what a monster!" Like, have they seen the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry games? Like, it is despicable. As soon as you see like some herons, you're like, "I'm gonna fuck all those herons."
Oh, yeah.
Like with my bow, like not literally fuck them, obviously, but like
fanfic.
like. The most annoyed I've been in the game I'm otherwise enjoying was I slaughtered a bunch of oxen and didn't get any crafting materials. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, I must be able to use the horns and hooves for something.
Sorry, man. You've been conditioned.
So yeah, you turn into this like terrible... I mean, there's one mission where you're rescuing a giant crocodile, which is super cool. Like, it's a massive white crocodile.
Yeah.
And along the way, you're going, oh, this, you know, it's important that we're rescuing this beautiful animal from the Romans. Like, I killed 2 lions in the camp while I was rescuing the crocodile. 2 beautiful golden lions. I love, there's so much to like about it. I don't know how much you want to hear about it. Like, Bayek and the relationship with his wife, they feel like soaked in sadness because of the thing that happens at the top, but they're trying to find this new way.
It's real bad.
He's kind of like, you know, if they'd sold it more as like Egyptian super history cop, that's like what he is. He's like kind of, he's out there like righting these wrongs and stuff.
Yeah.
There's very little of the kind of modern day Abstergo stuff, which I think is everyone agrees is largely, you know, tedious.
Yeah.
He's such a cool character. Really interesting to play as. I really like the kind of RPG stuff they've layered in. Because I'm a big kind of, you know, from my likes in other games, I like collecting and upgrading weapons. Even though, like, you know, so you know, like so in the game you upgrade like your bracer and your breastplate and all this stuff, and it's completely pointless. Like, never once do you feel like, oh, thank God I upgraded that bracer. That's really made a huge difference in that fight with an enormous elephant I just had. And yet still, I'm like, I need those other 10 hard leather hides because I need to upgrade the bracer. It's kind of weird. Like, and so the only other thing I don't like about it is like the combat, which I think has historically been bad in those games, and like it keeps getting better, the combat, but it's still basically bad.
Yeah.
But it's probably like the most fun of those. Yeah, I'm loving it. Like,
I agree.
I go home thinking, sweet, gonna get to spend another 4 hours in Egypt. So
it's one of the. I think we gave it one of our like the end of the year awards for like the best game world. Or
well,
best
I
open
was
world or something
so
like that.
I was playing it and I was thinking, well, what would I score this now for PC Gamer? Like, and I remembered Chris had done the review, but couldn't remember what he'd given it. And I was thinking, I'd probably go like 85. Like, there's a few kind of niggles. It's a really solid 85. I think Chris gave it 84. So
just about bullseye.
Yeah, Livingston and Chris and I are married now.
That's Assassin's Creed Origins.
How long have I been talking? Is the show over?
I don't know. So there's
like a
new
while.
people coming in at the beginning, so you know,
Good,
just
good.
trying to keep people on board. But yeah,
How
check it
about
out.
you, James? What are you playing?
Yeah, a handful of stuff. Vermintide 2 is out in full now. I know you played some of the beta with us.
Yeah, I played 3 or 4 missions. I was enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think my feelings have carried over. I talked about it a bit last week or the week before, and they've tuned Recruit to be a smoother ride. I think people are still like saying you need to kind of die to level 5 in order to kind of get to a place.
We took some heat in the comments for saying it was too hard.
I'll tell you what, that closed beta was too hard. Fuck everyone who disagrees. It was.
It was solid.
Yeah, it was. We couldn't get through the first fucking field. Granted, it had been a while, and we were level 1. But even so, like your first experience with the game, like a game that is essentially
we got the field. We died in the road beyond the field.
Yeah, just a little further. But those games to me are like half the thing you play them for is like the tourism, the Warhammer tourism, and you know, I was missing that because I couldn't get past the fucking field. And
well, I want the skill to be like, how do you optimize a run, right? To do it like either quickly or like with a great point score or whatever. Not just like you can't do this run at all. Like
you don't have the gear yet or whatever. And it doesn't do a great job. Like I played the first one, so I kind of knew a lot of the stuff going in, but like teaching you some basic principles of the game. But it's in a much better place now. And some of those levels are like the variety in them is way better than the first game. There's some really cool like straight up metal moments. I think Warhammer is, puts Lord of the Rings to shame. I'm putting that on record. It is like the best fantasy universe ever.
I'm back on that Warhammer bullshit right now. I was saying to Tom Senior before we came on this show that I've started reading Warhammer 40k novelizations again.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, that's some good pulpy fun, man.
If you're reading the Horus Heresy stuff, there's like about 50 books.
Christ.
And I found on Reddit there was a visual guide to the series that ranked them from like god tier down to shit tier. So I'm trying to work my way, not chronologically, but from the kind of the good ones, which Senior said, by his own admission, are still not that good, and avoiding the Drek. But you read the Far Cry 5
Yeah,
novel,
I read the
right?
Far Cry 5 novel. I wrote
Because
about
we
it a
made
bit.
you.
Yeah, well, actually, I did it of my own accord.
Yeah. Did you finish it?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty short. You can plow through it. It's Far Cry 5 novel. A totally unnecessary story, and it can be good fun like during the action bits. You know, just like any other.
What other books had that author written?
Gosh, I don't fucking know. I don't know. There's some like his author bio is like some New York Times bestseller stuff or like award-winning stuff. So, but I feel like every author who's been published has some award from some association. So,
James, who hasn't been on the New York Times bestseller
right?
list, right?
Come on.
I mean, how many books?
I do not recommend the Far Cry 5 book unless you're like just dying to see the marketing in weird.
Does it follow
novel
the
form.
path of the game, or is it more?
It's
like...
a precursor.
Oh right.
Yeah, there's it follows like one of the first characters we got to know from the like reveal, Mary May. She's the bartender, like making Molotov cocktails and like my daddy boopadoo. I'm like, that's not what Montana sound like.
Oh, that's your problem with it, lack of authenticity.
There's some really silly shit like that, but you know, I'm a snob. I can't be like just because I'm from Montana, like no one's gonna give a shit. But it's a silly action piece that really doesn't move anything forward or tell you something.
I read the novelization of RoboCop back in the day because I was too young to go and see the film. It was pretty good. I remember it being pretty good. I remember reading the book, really enjoying it, and then when I saw the film, I was like, oh, they've been really faithful to the book because I was like a child. And, I mean, of course it was.
But yeah, I don't like to write off these tie-in novels just because they are, you know.
No, I think that's fine to do.
Okay, I was curious, man. Otherwise, just real quick, I'll list off what I played a Medieval, which is just came to early access. It's like this old school, or it's a retro shooter made in the vein of Hexen and Heretic, and it's this really cool like vibe. You have a staff that shoots tiny planets, and when you go into your super mode, it starts shooting tiny stars, that supernova. Anyway, it's really cool.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
Is it multiplayer?
Not yet. I want to say that's coming in the final version. It's from the people who made Dusk, or at least like the same publisher who made Dusk. So I would imagine they get multiplayer in there. There's a horde mode included.
Can you read about it on the site?
Yes, I will link to that in chat. But we put up a preview this Monday, kind of our impressions. Some good gifs in there of an axe turning into a blender and some really cool shit.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And I got back into Rainbow Six Siege over the weekend.
A lot of people on the team are playing Siege.
Yeah, it's so good. It's in such a good place. I haven't even touched the Outbreak mode, which is like a whole other game. They bolted onto it.
Were you playing with Evan?
I was not. I was not playing with Evan.
Are you scared to play with Evan?
Evan, I'm not scared to play with Evan. I've played with him many times before, but if you're playing with Evan, it's like
it's all business.
It's all business. You gotta like call the room out you're in, and like you gotta know your directions. And he's really good at that game and holds you to a high standard. And I appreciate the things he's taught me under his leadership. But I played with a bunch of idiots who don't care about anything, and it was still a good time. I think that's a misconception is you can play that game without really being tactics god and have fun. Just because, I don't know, it's like a casual game of hide and seek with guns, I suppose. And the new operator, Lion, one of the new operators, is really cool to me because he adds this really silly mechanic that none of these mechanics make any sense that are coming with some of the new operators. He does this thing where it's basically like red light, green light, because he pops his ability, and everyone sees a timer countdown from 3 on their screen, and then for like 3 more seconds, if you move, you will be visible to everyone on the opposite team.
Right.
So it's like this, like you see it come up, like oh shit, don't move,
as like an outline or on their radar or something.
Yeah, you can see through literally walls. You can see exactly where they're at for like 3 seconds, and it's funny because everyone's like don't move, and just action crawls to like a standstill.
Are people using that operator that sends everyone a text message or whatever?
She's kind of fallen out of vogue. Like I don't know. I haven't seen her. Again, with new operators, people tend to just favor them, so maybe she'll slowly roll back in. But I haven't seen her in a bit. Either way, it's fun to play with these new guys. It's been cool. Yeah, Siege. Keep playing Siege. That's it's a great time. But enough about us. Let's talk about you again, I suppose. Oh no. Let's do news first. Let's just run through.
Are we doing the news?
Yes, we'll do the news first before we get into the card game nonsense. A lot of shit happened last week, like an absurd amount of shit happened last week, and we're just gonna like fire through some of these announcements because there's just not enough time to talk about.
Should we rate them in terms of excitement?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of like give our
Mhm.
as we go down. So, oh my god, here we go. Artifact was revealed.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I found that exciting.
Yeah, that's neat. Division 2 announced.
Just a logo.
We got a logo,
Yeah.
and we'll know more at E3.
Cool.
That's what we know. So, yeah.
Division 2 is interesting because it's a game that, I mean, not so much like Siege, because I think Siege never went through the lows that the Division did, but the Division's kind of been on a comeback trail recently.
Yeah.
I wrote a thing like, maybe 6 months, a year ago, sort of saying like their plan for year 2 is going to doom it, because that was at a point when they didn't really seem to have a plan.
Yeah.
And then they did release some stuff and had like the 1.7, I think, balance change and
That was a big one.
expansion.
Yeah.
Which did a lot, I think, to bring players back and get people interested in it again. I haven't looked at like what the concurrents are and stuff, or I haven't been able to see like how many people are playing it. But the sense is of a game that has righted a lot of its wrongs in terms of the way its end game worked, especially in the way some of the things it did to the loot system and the way you could keep optimizing. The optimization station they brought in for weapons I really liked as well. That took some of the pain out of the grind for god rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And the classified gear sets were cool as well,
Yeah.
although I have some pretty big issues with like
Stuff to chase.
now how many sets of those are in the pool there is to acquire. So I think like Division has gone from a point where like you would have been skeptical that any announcement would have been met well to now people being pretty psyched. And I think we're going to talk about what we want to see in it maybe a bit later.
I'm excited. Ubisoft's been doing a great job kind of propping up their releases and not letting them just fade away. For Honor, I think today just got a starter edition, much like Siege did back a year ago.
Are people still playing Wildlands though?
I don't know.
I think it's sold really
so.
well, but
And I did read yesterday that they're updating the game. There's like new classes coming to the game. So
yeah.
I think the long term has worked out for them in a lot of ways, and it's cool to see that. Even if your game is not number one, then you probably still have something to look forward to. Moving on, Black Ops 4. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was announced. Release date, October 12th.
But it's not IV4, it's 3/4.
4 slashes.
4 slashes, yeah.
4 slashes.
There you go. Maths is hard.
Which I think Eurogamer or someone like contacted like a museum person. That's what their title is probably. And asked them which is...
They don't need a museum person to tell them it's dumb. I can tell you it's dumb.
It's dumb, but technically correct.
It's correct.
It's technically...
In what way?
It's an accepted form.
What?
Yes. Go read the article or whatever, but I'm not going to sit here. I'm not a museum person.
Stop the show. I'm out.
We're done. Black Ops 4. Some quick hits here. Jeff Goldblum will be, quote, with you the whole game as Ian Malcolm in Jurassic World Evolution. That's coming from the, Coaster Planet? Wait.
Frontier.
Yeah. So that's cool.
The Elite guys.
Yeah, that looks really neat. And that's what a fun, maybe he's like a tutorial guy or some kind of like that voice in the back of your head that talks to you about things that could go wrong and comments on what you do and gives you tips or whatever. But
sounds nice, yeah.
It could be extremely grating, but I don't think Jeff Goldblum is one of those sort of meme people who has yet to become.
He's like
annoying.
become like only like ultra meme. I think like relatively recently. Like when I was a kid and he was in like the Fly and stuff. Like Goldblum, like he was weird even then, obviously. But the memes, I guess you didn't have memes when I was young.
No.
Or they were called something else.
Conversations or jokes. I don't know. It's a lost art. That's cool. Okay. Yeah. Fortnite Mobile is coming with crossplay. So, to clarify here, Fortnite, the full game Fortnite, you will be able to play somehow on your goddamn phone. And if you squad up with people playing on the PC, you will be able to play with them. By default, mobile people will be lobbied and match made with mobile players. Yeah. Makes sense, but it's an option, and it's hard to be mad at that.
So you're only going to be up against PC players if you kind of choose to play with your friend.
Yes, who is on PC, which I don't know why you would, but that's like a novelty, I suppose. Really weird, but hey, I mean...
I think like it's not so crazy to think those games can be played on mobile, because isn't there like a version of PUBG in China that's doing pretty well? I think there's other like knockoff games as well, right?
It's a much simplified version. What's astounding about this is that it's just the whole game. All mechanics, everything the whole fucking Fortnite game, which is like a game very much about precision and a complex building system and Twitch play.
Just recognize this as the exact moment when like you lost track of like how the kids are going to be playing games in the future. Because like for us, the notion of playing a game like that is anathema on a phone. But for them, they'll grow up.
I interviewed a grade school classroom about Fortnite this week, and I mentioned this.
How did you even find a grade school classroom? You can't hang around outside school.
I, as a former teacher, I have contacts. Okay. I'll say this, but in the teacher, yeah,
the child world.
God damn it, Tim. But yeah, I mentioned this mobile version, and they lost their fucking minds.
They're into it.
They were, and then I said, "Oh,
of course they were." And
then I was like, "Yo, you'll be able to play with PC people and Xbox, or I don't know exactly how the crossplay like every platform. It doesn't matter because we're PC gamer." But and they were like, "What?" And the teachers were just like, you could tell they were like, "Oh my god, no," because these kids have phones in school, and they're just gonna be. I mean, even the brief time I was a teacher, it was like. I wanted to die. These kids were watching Twitch.
Like confiscating
I could hear PewDiePie in the back of the classroom some days, just like doing his thing. Anyway, lost my mind. That's the thing that's happening. Let's run through this. PUBG got a kind of a plan for the next year or so. There's a new tropical island map coming. It's a smaller map, 4x4 kilometers.
Did they say like what the design reasons they had for like wanting to do a smaller map were?
I think it's just to
speed it up.
Give it a more. Honestly, it feels like a direct response to Fortnite. Fortnite's map's really small, and the matches are super snappy. They're not like too long anyway in like PUBG's default map because you have vehicles and you can traverse quicker. But one of the
things I don't play much PUBG or any PUBG. But one of the things that appeals to me about it is the idea that you are in a slightly more open space and you might not see someone for a while.
Yeah.
But I guess like different people, once they played a lot of it, just want to get into the action.
It's variety. I mean, like, hey, you know, I'm not mad about it. Sorry, yeah.
Will it still be the exact same number of players though?
As far as I know, yes. Okay. As far as I know, yeah. Really, all we got was just like the mention of it and like a rough like sketch. We also got a rough roadmap. So there's gonna be one more map coming after the tropical island this year, or at least in their projection. For they want to do every 2 months. They want to have a big content drop, and the maps are part of that. I imagine they will space those out pretty well.
I'm sucking in air because I'm thinking about Destiny going 6 months without a balance change.
Yeah, dude.
It's rough.
Apparently
it's hard.
They're getting pretty surpassed by these games that are just built around this stuff.
I saw someone saying they would like to, or they thought like Destiny should go to like a battle royale model for PvP.
Who the fuck said that?
Maybe it was on Reddit or something.
I think someone internally said that. Like I remember someone in the office saying that. No. I don't know. You could just convert one of those maps. No, you couldn't. Other things, better character customization, emotes. Finally, nice. So you're gonna be able to see all the same memes you see on the Fortnite subreddit.
They're gonna make bank selling emotes.
Oh, dude, yeah. New vehicles and weapons, an improved ballistic system, and an experimental server.
I'm going to put you on the spot now. What's been going on with this cheating stuff? Because they put out a patch and then they rolled it back, anti-cheat thing.
I don't know about that. Okay, I don't know about that. I just know that it's an ongoing thing for the PUBG devs. That I mean, its popularity in China and globally, like it's hard to. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to, but I don't know. It's hard for them to protect their game from such a big audience. Playing on different systems and under different. I don't know. I would imagine different DRM. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, PUBG, it's still going strong.
I like. I have to say, because that's something that I've at least been glad of with Destiny. I like it when developers of these kind of living games do put out roadmaps.
Yeah.
Even if some of the stuff on the roadmap then gets pushed back, it gives you, I think, as a player. I mean, I can see why it's fraught with risk for developers, but I think it gives you as a player it lets you anchor your expectations in terms of like, well, in kind of the spring this stuff's coming, and then like later in the year I can look forward to this. You feel a little bit in a vacuum otherwise with these sorts of games, not knowing how they're going to be tweaked and improved, and just kind of waiting for some kind of tablet of stone to come down on high. So I think setting up some expectations in this kind of like longer term way is really healthy in the current atmosphere around these big games.
I agree. Especially after Destiny 2's like vacuum of information. It's like I fucking need it. I need it.
But I mean, I think it goes. I mean, I've seen it in like multiple games I've played. The same.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Even in the card games, when people don't know what's going on with balance and stuff, they tend to get more angry.
Yep. I should mention that Vermintide 2, the Fat Shark put out a I think at least a 6-month plan or something like that,
Yeah.
and that's even
Same
nice
deal,
to see.
yeah,
Like
it's really
dedicated servers, DLCs. You can just kind of breathe and know you don't have to play nonstop right now. You can come back, and gives you a cadence to the lifestyle you form around these games. Real quick, I put this in there because I'm not a true hardcore gamer, but there's a Dark Souls amiibo coming out.
I saw that. Yeah.
Solaire. I mean, I gotta buy it.
You gonna get it?
Yeah.
How much other Dark Souls merch have you got? Oh, what happened to the statue we had in the old office?
I think it's in a closet somewhere. I don't know. Where are we gonna put it?
By a closet, you mean your apartment?
Trust me, I hate shit like that, and I still want this amiibo.
I'm not normally one to pick up merch at all, but I brought back Evan a Team Fortress 2 jigsaw from Valve.
It's 1,000 pieces. It looks pretty complex.
I hope he's made a start.
He'll tear it up, I'm sure. And last but not least, Hearthstone, Witchwood. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, new expansion. What I like about it is it's got the spooky theme. I love the spooky expansions most. Things like Curse of Naxxramas and Whispers of the Old Gods. It's obviously like Hearthstone spooky, so it's still kind of very comical and tongue-in-cheek. I'm just trying to check the number of cards before I mess it up. I think it's 180 or so new cards out, probably middle of next month, April. There's a couple of new keywords going on. There's one called Echo, which means if you play a card, say it costs 3 and you've got like 9 mana to spend, you can play it 2 more times because you get like an Echo version of the card.
Right.
Magically appear in your hand. So these cards tend to be like kind of understated, but can get you pretty big value as like top decks late in the game. So that's one new keyword. The other one is Rush. Blizzard has had like a terrible time balancing the charge mechanic, which is like haste in Magic. So charge means on the turn you play a creature, it can attack straight away. And almost all the really degenerate, or certainly a lot of the most degenerate combos in Hearthstone have used charge creatures. You think of like during the Grim Patron era, Leroy Jenkins had to be nerfed as well. So they've really struggled to balance charge because however they do it, someone will find a way of exploiting it with other cards. So the way Rush, this new word, works is the creature can still attack as soon as it's played, and actually also as soon as it's summoned, because it used to be that... no, it did work if it was summoned. Anyway, so as soon as it hits the board, it can attack, but it can only attack minions. So like it can't hit the other opponent in the face. So that way you should stop getting like killed just out of hand by these kind of mega combos. Right. So I would expect like going forward, like hardly any charge minions to ever be printed again. I think they're over that. And the other cool thing they've shown is there's a couple of new legendary cards. And by the way, we updated this week our list of the top 20 legendary cards to craft, which is voted for by pro players and looked after by a guy called Lorinda, who you might have seen casting tournaments and stuff, real expert. So to reflect like the new kind of meta, which is a word I know you don't like, James. Right. Before the Witchwood comes out. But yeah, sorry, I'm excited, so I'm like bouncing around. But yeah, these 2 new legendaries. Let me find their names because they've got funny names. So one is called Jen Greymane, and the way he works is that if your deck only has even cost cards, your hero power costs 1, which is a reduction of 1 for the whole game. You don't have to draw the card; you just get the effect. And the other one works similarly. He's called Baku the Moon Eater. He's like some kind of Technicolor friggin' serpent or something. And the way he works is if your deck only has odd cost cards, your hero power is upgraded, and that means it's kind of usually like double the effectiveness it used to be. Same as used to work with Justicar True Heart. I already feel you glazing over, James, and drinking the booch.
Actually, it's vinegar today, apple cider vinegar.
Nice.
Carrying on.
So the reason these cards are important is those 2 restrictions, only use odd cards, only use even cards, are like, that's a huge deal. That means you can only use half your collection when building your deck, but the potential payoff, given those effects are guaranteed, is big. So we'll see, like, those are the kind of cards which either it'll turn out that the restriction is too big and like those decks are fun but always bad, or I think those decks will be very effective because someone out there, and bear in mind Hearthstone is a game played by tens of millions of people, someone out there will find an optimal list for a couple of classes. People are already speculating Control Mage might work well with odds, and potentially a Face Hunter might work well with odds because the hero power in Hunter is really good. If those decks become super powerful, I think they'll become quite annoying to face because that the other player having like a flat advantage from the first turn will be pretty annoying. So we'll see. I think they're risky cards. I'm always excited to see a risky card, so I'm not criticizing Blizzard for a second. When I saw them, I thought these are going to be exciting, and I think we saw from the last set they are being a bit quicker to make changes when there are problems. Like Corridor Creeper was nerfed pretty fast last time around. So overall, like really excited by the set. They teased in the big reveal trailer. They had one where like Brode and the other Cossack and a couple other designers were in the woods, like aping Blair Witch, and they teased at the end this
I should watch that.
new, what looked like a new hero card. And hero cards are when you transform yourself into like having a new form, new powers.
Oh, yeah.
So they were super cool in the Knights of the Frozen Throne set. So they teased this new one, which was an orc witch lady. But like the sleuths out there on Reddit and that are speculating that may not be an actual collectible card. That may be the enemy in the new Monster Hunt mode. So the last set had a dungeon run mode where you could go on these versus AI. It was like super popular. I heard this rumor that it was so popular that people bought a lot less packs last time around.
Oh,
so
shit.
there was some speculation that they might not include an equivalent with this set. In Dungeon ones, you could play as all 9 classes. In Monster Hunt, which is the new version in the Witchwood, you get 4. It's not class, well, they are class specific, but you just get 4 characters, I think. So it looks like the mode is back, but maybe it's been dialed down a little bit, would be my guess. But still, really pleased it's back, because Dungeon Run was, I think, it was probably the single best thing they've added to that game in 3 or 4 years, however long old it is.
Yeah, it's the first thing like in
Is that enough card talk?
No, we're about to talk about
news.
We're going to talk about cards again. But these, I'm glad to see that they're doing more sort of versus AI stuff, because that's the kind of thing I'm interested in, because I know I'll never stay on top of the meta. But I love
playing
dipping my
ladder
hand in
is
there.
like it's a tilting experience at
Yo,
the best of times.
Hearing between you and Lucas, our Games Radar colleague, it sounds like you guys have just some days of the week where it's really hard to be a Hearthstone
we
player.
both so we're both trying to hit Legend this month, kinda.
Yeah.
I've hit Legend before, but like decided once I'd done it not to try again because it was so stressful at the time. But this time, because they changed the way the ladder system works, you start higher up, you decay less. So I began like at rank like 5 or 6 this season, I think.
Okay.
I think I began at the top of rank 6, just outside of 5. And 5 is where there's one of these floors where you can't rank down below it once you hit it. And right now I'm like rank 3, but I've been bouncing around from like nearly 2 to back to 4, like not making much progress. And like I played some yesterday in the evening, and I think I went on like maybe a 7-game losing streak. Like could not buy a win, and it feels terrible.
Yeah.
But equally, when you go on a good win streak, pardon me, but when you go on a good win streak, it's one of the best feelings.
Oh shit.
It's pure serotonin, isn't it? It's like the thrill of beating another person on the internet.
And the amount of serotonin you wager with every match seems to increase. Well, I wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And I wish you the best of luck in Artifacts competitive mode whenever that appears. But first, let's talk about what the hell Artifact is. And this to me is especially sort of interesting, not because I like when Valve contributes games to, because they usually have interesting spins on their genres, but you opened up, you gave your piece with your impressions, the headline, and I quote, it's everything you need to know about Valve's Artifact, and a quote from Gabe Newell, is it Gabe Newell?
Yep.
Yeah. The whole point is to steer away from pay to win. And that to me, a big reason I am kind of just backing, Hearthstone feels impossible for me is because...
Too expensive to get into.
Yeah, like there's so many expansions by now that it feels like I'm just behind.
Yeah.
So maybe you can...
So let's talk about Artifact then. The single most important thing about it is that it is not a collectible card game. It is a trading card game. And the key is obviously the word trading. So it's being made by, the project lead on it is Richard Garfield, who's the guy who created Magic the Gathering way back when. He came to Valve, I think, about 4 years ago with this idea for wanting to work on a digital card game that would solve a lot of the problems Magic had to that point had transitioning into the digital space, because there are versions of Magic which exist on PC, which I think are universally agreed to not be great. So really, you've got this incredible combination of like this guy who is probably considered peerless in terms of the card design space and game, trading card game design space, and Valve, who have, the most built out digital marketplace around. and obviously their own kind of, pretty incredible designers and systems engineers coming together to make this game. I think that's, the trading aspect for me anyway is fundamentally what makes it most interesting. So to talk about that a little bit, so the game isn't free to play. That makes it different from the get-go from the likes of Hearthstone, Shadowverse, Elder Scrolls Legends, where you can just create an account, start buying packs. You'll earn packs through just playing and completing quests and whatnot. In Artifact, there'll be, the equivalent of a ticket price, in the same way as when you want to play Overwatch, you have to buy the base game, which will get you a bunch of cards, a bunch of other content. They weren't specifying which yet, but there's going to be 280 cards in the game when it launches, 44 heroes that are based largely on the champions from Dota 2, because the game is themed around Dota. And beyond that, you'll still be able to buy packs. They haven't priced them yet, but then you'll be able to trade, so swap and sell your stuff on Steam Market. So the question is why does that make it not pay to win? And I think his answer, or certainly the answer he pointed to, was that there is not going to be the rarity of cards and the power of cards. So it's not it's not like in Hearthstone or Elder Scrolls, you have to craft these legendary cards really to be competitive, and they're super expensive to make, and you have to hope you get them from packs. His suggestion was that commons would cost pennies if you bought them on Steam Markets. You should be able to, I think, get like fairly viable decks without spending much. That seemed to be their argument, right? But at the same time, this is Gabe Newell speaking just before the main kind of we got our hands on the game. He referenced the fact that Magic players back in the day would spend $400 a year on staying up to speed with Magic, and I can certainly say in Hearthstone I spent, I know there's plenty of people out there who free to play by the way, and sort of taking pride in that, but there's clearly many more who do spend money on packs, even if it's just kind of 50 at the start of an expansion or whatever. So I think the proof is going to be kind of in the pudding on the pay to win side of it. I think we need to very much know more about what does the complete card file look like, what does the most competitive decks look like, and then you have a greater sense of what it's going to cost to get into. So I don't really want to go, yeah, they've nailed it, that's definitely true yet. What I can say though is how I think the game plays, because I played a couple of games up there, and I saw a tournament played out by a bunch of pro players from the kind of Hearthstone and other CCG world, and weirdly we're not allowed to say who those pros were, because I think they have pre-existing relationships with some other games. Gwent, which would maybe get them in hot water for being seen to promote another game at the moment. But anyways, so the game is true to promise, like Dota's based on 3 lanes. This is a card game where you have 3 boards you have to worry about. So what you can see on the picture you've pulled up here, James, is this is when you've double clicked on one of the boards you're on, and the camera then zooms out to show all 3 fields. And I was chatting to one of the Valve guys and saying they could use a bit more visual differentiation to make it clearer which one you're on, left, middle, or right. But you basically begin the game with actually quite a complex board state already in place, because each player has 5 heroes. 3 of them begin in play, 1 in each lane for both players. Plus, there's if you've played Dota, they have creeps which spawn. 2 creeps will already have spawned in one of the boards, and then after every round, 2 more creeps will keep spawning. So there's kind of this constant influx of new creatures in addition to the cards you play, and of your team of 5 heroes, each round, one of the new heroes will come in. If one of your... Now, I'm going to have to take a deep breath now, James, because there's a lot going on. And if one of your heroes dies, right, which is going to happen quite a bit, they're kind of kicked out of the game, but they only sit 1 round out, and then they come back in, and you choose where to put them. So it could be if you go back to the screenshot you're on before, imagine this is the start of round 3 or whatever. I might. You can't see it here, but I would have both I and my opponent would have these hero cards appear, and I'd drag them into the lane where I wanted to kind of reinforce it or try and dominate it. So what you're trying to do basically is in the same way as you've got 3 lanes, you've effectively got 3 heroes you're protecting, although in this case they're towers, and you win the game by destroying 2 towers, right? So you need to win a best of 3 basically.
Okay.
But it's even more complicated than that, because you could win by just going, I'm going to go all in on the right-hand lane.
Right.
I'm going to stall in lanes 1 and 2 and just try and like drag the opponent into like a kind of really slow game. But I'm going to put all my good shit in lane 3, and I'm going to kill the tower in lane 3. That will get me 1 point. But after the tower dies, tower's got 40 points of health. I'm aware I've said a lot of words. An ancient will spawn, which you'll again be familiar with from Dota if you've played it.
Yeah.
The ancient has, I don't really know what an ancient is, but it's got, this has got 80 points of health. So if you kill the ancient as well, then you've scored 2 points now total.
Okay.
So now you've won the game as well. So it's a race to who can rack up 2 points most quickly.
So
You want to know more? There's more.
Oh my god.
As you're destroying cards, right, you're earning gold. After each round, there's a shopping phase to be spent where you spend your gold on items and equipment.
Okay.
Equipment can only be applied to the heroes. The heroes have 3 little slots at the top where they can have a weapon, a piece of armor, or another item. You can see it, yeah. So right here, the cards that are so those blue cards are hero cards. The one on the left that's X'd out in the bottom row, and the lady in the suit of armor. So you can see they can each have 3 things applied at the top.
Yeah.
Then down at the bottom, you've got attack and defense, and then armor in the middle. Oh my god, there's so much. Where the hell was I?
Store. You were buying stuff for your heroes.
Yeah,
and
so you
equipping.
buy. Yes, thank you. So you equip these items. If that character dies, they keep their items. So when they come back with their items. So there's this kind of like rolling build up of power. Each lane has its own mana pool, so you can spend like 3. So say we're on, what does it say there? 7.
Yes.
7/7.
Yep.
So in this turn, you can spend 7 mana in lane 1, 7 mana in lane 2, and 7 mana in lane 3. But your cards, which are there at the bottom, are persistent across all 3 lanes, right? It's the same hand of cards. So you basically start out in lane 1, you and the other player do all your stuff, and you do it by, it's not like Hearthstone or Elder Scrolls where you like, I take a big turn, now he takes a big turn. It's like, I play a card, he plays a card. I play a card, he plays a card.
Oh.
Initiative passes back and forth.
Okay.
And whoever turn it was next, if you go to the next lane, that initiative persists. So it's, although you can't like interrupt the other person on his turn, it feels much more kind of push-pull interactive, I would say. Oh my god. There's another thing, like there's so many other things, but like, so decks begin at 40 cards but have no limit.
Right.
There's no limit to the amount of cards you can have in your hand, and there's no limit to the amount of creatures you can have in a lane. You can't see it here, but like, if I was to put 20 creatures into this lane, that would be allowed. They would just spill off to the side. There'd be like a plus on each side, and I would just scroll the mouse wheel left and right to,
My God.
sorry, up and down to scroll left and right. So it's Valve, man. It's like frigging maths and science and complexity, and you build your deck with colours. There's green, there's red, there's blue, there's black. So similar to Magic Gathering, except you don't have white. But you can build your deck with as many colours as you want. Colours matter because they create the personality of the cards. Red is very aggressive. Blue is more kind of like your big spells and stuff.
Right, okay.
And you can... So if you're looking at this lane here, you've got like a red hero on the right.
Yeah.
That means I can spend red cards using that mana pool there, right? But if I didn't have the red hero, I would not be allowed to spend that mana on red cards. I'd have to wait until I was in another lane with the red hero.
Okay.
So now, I'm not even going to ask you if you understand that, James, because the answer's no. As I was, so like, picture the scene, right? I'm at Valve and they're explaining it to me better than this, but like, I'm panicking because I'm like, I have no, like, I struggle to like worry about one board state and like what cards the other player might have and what I'm meant to be, what's my strategy, let alone 3 at once.
Yeah,
and of course, there's cards like, Blink Dagger from Dota, which will like hop you from one lane into the next, plus buff your character's attack. So you need to be thinking about all that stuff of like, well, when's his heroes that I've killed coming back? Is it next turn or is it the one after? You've got to be kind of mapping out like, what's your plan going to be for actually winning the game? Which of the lanes I'm going to try and win? Because the chances are you're not going to win in all 3.
No.
That's just not how it's balanced, right? And there's tons of other stuff too. Like, heroes have abilities like kind of retaliate, where if you attack them, they kind of do this auto damage back. Because the combat happens like kind of automatically. Like your stuff is all lined up, and then once you both stop playing cards in that lane, so you stop passing back and forth, you basically say, all right, I'm done, you're done. When that happens, all the stuff attacks each other. And if there's nothing to attack each other, they'll attack the tower. That's how damage is done to the tower. So what happened was, rather than just like throwing us into the deep end, we Got to play a couple of games with a helper from Valve. And this is the level of like detail Valve go to, right? For each of us, they had like read all our stuff beforehand.
Oh damn!
Yeah, they like knew like, oh, so Tim, I enjoyed that piece you did on the Hearthstone. I was like, oh, that was good. I was like, ah,
right,
okay. So I was with a lovely guy called Kyle Davis, and he walked me through 2 games. We played one where I played a red-black deck, which was very aggressive and won quite quickly, and I was buffing my dudes, and just the opponent couldn't cope with the amount of damage I was putting out. The second game is with a blue, I want to say blue-green deck? Yeah, blue-green deck.
Okay.
And it was a much slower deck that basically was built around staying alive for long enough that it had these like super spells that would come online, and you could do big clear entire lanes in one go, and you would kind of da-da-da. And that was a much more drawn out knife edge game where I had like multiple times where I had like one lane that was on like 1 health, and if I lost that 1 health, that's how it was going to go, and I was having to just like block him off and silence his heroes who couldn't cast spells, and I ended up with like a roaring headache. Like I wrote about it in the piece, and my head was like splitting. It was like boiling hot with just like the amount of information I was trying to process. And I'm an old man. I can't really take on board new things at this stage in life. So I came away like, it's very easy to be like seduced by the fact that you're at Valve, and it's a genre I already like. I'm appreciative of the fact that, you know, whenever we write about this, it always seems to be my games that get this response, but like, or the ones that I like. There's a bunch of people going, oh, Valve, just make a real game. Like, why have you got to make this card game cash grab bullshit? Like, they're making it, I think, because as a genre, like from Magic onwards, it's like, you know, I think like a fascinating exercise in like balance and interplay and strategy. I think this genre is really cool. I think Valve are doing it. You know, Valve like money like everyone else for sure. I'm sure their model is designed to be you know, financially successful. But first and foremost, I think they're interested in making an amazing card game, and one that is different to, you know, if you play a lot of other card games, it's really about tempo and initiative and who gets their stuff on board first, and they snowball a win from that. Hearthstone's got better in that respect recently, in that it's probably the first real control meta we've seen, and control means those kind of like slow decks that really look to pick apart your strategy and really kind of strangle you out of a game. And this is the first time that's really probably been the dominant strategy. But for a long time, Hearthstone and games like it have been pretty simple and have relied on kind of getting on board and just basically chasing your opponent out of the game. And I said in the office, like, Blizzard aren't idiots. There's a reason their game is like that. They know that, you know, they have the sense of what the optimal length of the game is. I think they have a sense of like what the optimal complexity of the game is to hit the biggest audience possible. And they've gone that route for very deliberate reasons, not just because it's the easiest one to go down. But that is not what Artifact is, and that's kind of what I tried to say in my piece, is that this is a game that is going to be for people who want to play strategically a very complex game. And it's going to be really interesting to see like how big that audience is, whether the kind of card game community is ready for that. I think they probably are, and I think it's going to be probably a pretty big deal. I think, like, you know, other games that have come into this space have made some big mistakes. Like, some just don't have the resources to compete with the polish that a Blizzard can put out. And Newell was at pains to say, you know, like, he thinks Hearthstone's done a lot of smart things. He really respects them. So he wasn't like, they're definitely not having a pop at them. But you look at something like Elder Scroll Legends, and like they didn't let people stream it when it was in beta, and I felt like that was a huge mistake at the time when there was a real buzz around that game, and then it kind of fizzled. And I think Valve will be much smarter about, already when I'm watching other streams, you see a lot of people going, oh, you're going to play Artifact? What do you think of Artifact? Like, we'll see, you know, we'll see.
I'm going to tell you what I got from that.
I said a lot of words.
I'm going to tell you what I got from that as a proclaimed non-card gaming guy. And I will tell you, it's very interesting to me.
Do you think it's for you?
I think it is built. I think it will be better for someone who maybe only wants to play a card game every couple of months. Because from what it sounds like, I will be able to. I don't have to worry about buying every expansion or buying into every expansion or staying abreast of the meta.
I mean, there's definitely going to be expansions, right? For sure. And I think like there probably will quite quickly. There will be a meta that develops, and if you just dip into it, you'll get your ass kicked. I think what's interesting will be like whether the bug bites you. of that kind of
Right.
3-lane system.
Well, and that's what's more interesting to me is instead of this weird. I mean, I'm sure there are so many minute layers of strategy that like people will have to get a hold of, but the idea of just like choosing where to allocate resources in a 3-board spread, like as a basic like umbrella idea, that's cool to me.
Yeah.
That's like a fun idea and easy to understand.
One of the interesting things when we were watching the finals of the tournament was like we were sat then with like all of the designers on the game
Yeah.
who we were watching it stream from inside Valve's office. They have their own kind of pet casters who were in a casting, booth doing this mini broadcast just for their office.
Yeah.
And on the tougher turns when the board was stacked, all 3 boards were stacked on both sides. The Valve guys, like one of whom, other than Garfield, was like apparently a Magic Hall of Famer who's now working on the systems, the programming side, and they were all arguing about the lines of play, and like not agreeing at all. Like wildly different strategies were coming up, and like I'll give you an example of a turn where like Kai was help me map it out, where I had to I had a card which swapped the positions of 2 characters. I could like force the character in the opposing lane to duel me. Then because I'd swapped the positions, I was getting a buff from something else next to it. And then when I hit combat, I'd completely basically changed the scope of like the math on either side of the board in my favour. And it's something which like, I mean, I could have looked at that board state for maybe an hour and not seen that. And he was like, you might want to...
Gotcha.
Yeah. And like, I think there's a type of player who will really respond to those sorts of plays. And also like people watching it will watch it and go, oh, that was sweet. How did he see that? The bigger questions are like, for things like Twitch, like how easy will it be for people to come in and spectate a tournament where it's like each game is 3 boards? Like, will they quickly enough be able, or will they eventually be able to pass those game states without being able to see all the boards whenever they want?
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the interesting things is like, Valve is Valve. They have huge experience on Dota 2 and CS:GO esports. I think the way to watch this game is going to be in the client. When you all said they're going to be doing stuff like exposing the stats of each deck, so you can kind of go in and go, oh, when he plays this card, he wins 60% of the time, right? And really get kind of nerdy about that sort of shit. But when you look at other card games, part of the simplicity of it is you can just pop a stream on and go, I see what's happening in this game. Like straight away, you see it, right? You see his
parse it.
Yeah, you see his hand of cards. You see what's happening on the board. But with these, you're kind of like, even if you've been watching the whole game, you're still kind of having to remember what's happening on board 1 and 3 the whole time, if you're looking at 2.
Yeah.
So I think there's some, definitely around the UI and stuff, there's some interesting challenges. But I went up there expecting, and I think like in hindsight, this was a stupid expectation. I went up there expecting to go, they just made a pretty good card game and jammed the Dota license on it, and it's going to be really solid and like good.
Yeah.
And it's more than that. I think the trading element, the 3-lane element, push it so far away from like what's currently available that even if it doesn't become like in terms of scope like a challenger to Hearthstone, it's certainly going to be, I think, like intellectually, creatively, the card game to kind of battle against Blizzard.
Well, I'm excited.
I hope we at least play it in the office a bit, a few of us, yeah.
I'm definitely going to give it a try. Like, again, I don't mean to be the anti-card game guy, but like, it's hard to stay afloat.
Well, the time to get in is on the ground floor,
Yeah.
definitely, because then, like, hopefully, like, if they make the price of entry reasonable and they make the cost of packs reasonable, it should be, I would imagine they're going to want everyone who buys that initial package or whatever to be able to say, all right, I can make, 2 or 3 or 4 good decks now, immediately. And then it's a case of tweaking. The problem is, I think you're right, is that when you come into card games and everyone else has got 2 years, because they're going 2-year blocks now, but 2 years worth of expansions, then it's like, what am I going to do? Drop $150 just to even get like a couple of decks? Like, that's rough.
It'll be interesting to see how they address that. And if they can.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like the thing I'm most interested next is to see pricing and stuff. See how the market's
well, and
actually going to work.
it sounds like just it has enough layers of complexity that even though there will be a meta and there will be expansions, countless expansions, that you might be able to, just from certain high levels of play, be able to work around that.
Well, here's the other thing as well. Like, if you play it for like a couple of years and decide you're done with it, at least you can sell your shit.
Oh, there you go.
In Hearthstone, like if I was to die, I couldn't even will you my account because that's not allowed by the terms of services. I certainly can't sell my cards. Right? I just lose all that value.
Yeah.
So the notion of just retaining value, I think, is significant.
Cool. Well, that's
Is that
exciting.
enough cards? Cards down?
Well, real quick, did they give like a timeline for betas or
Yeah,
anything
so
like that?
they basically have like an internal but closed beta at the moment, which has
Okay.
got a bunch of card game pros in it, friends and family. I think the next thing, this is unconfirmed, but from speaking to them, the impression I got was the next thing will be a beta that will kind of invite probably like press and spread it open to maybe they'll hand out some more codes, and then it's due out on PC before the end of the year, and then onto like tablets in the new year.
Okay.
And I would suspect before that eventual late 2018 PC release, there'll be, I'm sure, an open beta. Like, I'd be amazed if there wasn't.
Yeah,
But
no,
again, that's unconfirmed.
Well, hell, I feel a little brain dead.
Big week for cards.
Yeah, big week for cards. Also a big week for cardigans because
All right,
you
I wanna
can
see
wear
where you- I
them
wanna see
in
where
the
you're going with this.
division, maybe.
You can get cardigans.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let's talk about the Division 2, and real quick, cards took up a lot of time. We won't sit on this forever, but let's just kind of talk about where the division ended and sort of what we want to see them develop and grow in the Division 2. Where should the starting point be?
Not New York.
Not New York.
Actually, maybe that's wrong. So there's two things to that, right? So one is not New York, because I think it would be sweet to see another city, and maybe even a city not in America. I think for me anyway, would be really cool to see like a European city. But I'm also, now I immediately think about it, conscious of the fact that like Destiny 2 dropped all of Destiny 1 on console anyway.
Yeah.
And like literally dispensed with all those systems, dispensed with all that artwork, most of that artwork, dispensed with all those kind of like missions they're designed. Yeah. And I think it really hurt it. I think what Destiny 2 should have been... How many times have I included Destiny 2 in the conversation?
It's impossible.
What Destiny 2 should have been was building on the foundations of D1. So I guess with Division, maybe there is a strong argument to say like you keep New York and you add another kind of full city to New York. So that the problem is with any of those looter shooters, whether they're third or first person, is like the content droughts. So like I guess like not losing any content would probably be the way to go, even for a game where like people have played the same shit for 3 years. What do you want from it?
Well, I've got a list here, and I would prefer a new setting, or at least, like you said, if they could bolt another
I'd love
city.
Multiple cities.
Yeah, it would be. I'm waiting for the looter shooter to do that. To just build over time, an MMO that becomes an MMO after 6 years or something like that. I want to see better endgame content. The Division launched with Jack Hall for that. You kind of just finished the campaign, and you could play it on harder difficulties, and you could get some endgame loot, and it was just bad. It was really bad. They added incursions over time, which were welcome.
But what about legit raids?
That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want some fucking raids. And the incursions, some of them had like special mechanics and so on, but they were like in locations.
Have you done much incursions?
They were just not that interesting. Like one was a horde mode. The first one was like a horde mode. I was not interested at all.
I haven't touched incursions just because I don't have a regular group for Division on PC. But
they came in late. They came in late.
So I would just grind on my own, like doing the weekly bounties and missions and stuff, which got pretty boring,
But I think for Destiny, and we're going to talk about Destiny because it's impossible to, when talking about these games, raids give the community and the people playing something to look like. The game orbits them. Like everything you do sort of is in preparation for that. And I think something like that, a big, fully featured, like in a special location with maybe special enemies and special mechanics, like that really gives people something to look forward to, and it gives a cadence to future releases.
I think their like unique weapons need to look more unique and do more unique stuff.
Definitely.
I know they can't, they're not dealing with aliens and space magic, but like when it's just like, it's a sniper rifle that's paired with another marksman rifle, and one does this and one does that. They're pretty boring, a lot of them. And like you've seen with like the weapon I was chasing at the moment is one called the House, which is the go-to SMG. That the perk is actually quite on paper sounds quite boring. I think like one half of the magazine does like double damage, and it keeps flipping as you reload it. But it's so powerful that it's become like the must-have weapon. And you saw that definitely with D1, like having a few guns like that, like a Gjallarhorn and stuff, does to the community. They really want to chase for those things, and I think like again, with like D2, it was such a huge mistake that they tried to like level off all the weapons for balance purposes and ended up with making so many of them boring.
I agree. Sort of tailing off that, I've forked suggestions here, but make the armor, and cosmetics better and more interesting. They kind of got there.
They're a bit better, but still, it's like you open the loot box and go, oh, I got some khaki pants.
Oh wow! But this is like the Division
got like a backpack.
Yeah,
I got a backpack skin that I can barely see.
The Division is like already approaching like post-apocalypse. At some point, these people gotta be like ripping tires apart and making like you don't have to go fucking Mad Max with it.
I would like to see Divisions raids go like how like WoW raids you have like lots of players together. I would like to see like tons of players together in a Division raid. Like imagine like a pitched battle where there's like 50 guys at once on the other side of the street, and you've got like 20 Division agents all fighting them. Like that would look like, do you know what I mean? Like a real like movie gunfight.
The scale,
the scale.
I think the scale could improve. And one thing I was hoping for, and maybe I'm crazy, but the overworld was never instanced, right? Like there was no PVE. Like you would never run into players that you weren't squatted up with already.
Yeah, you would in the Dark Zone.
The Dark Zone, yes, but I would love to see that carry over to PVE in some instances, like public events. Like if I wander into this area where this thing is happening, maybe there's 20 other players there doing the same.
So another thing you could, I'm sorry I haven't had time to write for your list, but so another thing I really liked was the underground mode. I thought had a lot of potential. It's kind of slightly undercooked, but because it's like semi-procedural. I think there's a version for these. Like I thought this was also another answer for Destiny. Is I thought they had to find a way to do some kind of procedural content that would change. And I think a lot of people, when they heard the name The Infinite Forest with Curse of Osiris, thought that's what that was going to be. This procedurally generated Vex world, and it wasn't. It was just some Lego bricks they stuck together semi-randomly. So I would imagine like Division 2 having like a map editor for like the underground, where like you or I as players could go in, build an hour-long underground, and then share it. Like that would be so sweet, especially if they put like good loot behind it. You'd get people get a reputation for creating really cool maps.
That'd be great.
Ideally not all set underground, because that does, I think, inherently make it a little boring.
Yeah.
But I think with any of these like grazing shooters is one way I heard them described, because it's like you're out in a field and eventually you come across some animals that are just minding their own business, and then you attack them, which are like in this case the not terrorists, are they? But you know what I mean, bad guys. I would love to see. I'd love to see them be able to not have only new content added every sort of 6 months, which goes for both Division developer whose name I've forgotten now and Bungie. Like the ability to be able to add in like, there's just something cool happening this week and it's over here on the map, and like go check it out. Like I know it's so hard to do. I know like creating like high res assets for like contemporary triple games is a fucking nightmare of testing and planning. But I think the promise of those games was always that the world would keep feeling like it's changing, and in fact it's the antithesis of that. You end up reaching a point where you know where all the spawns are, and like, that's going to be where the guy with the sniper rifle is, and that's going to be where the guy comes out with the bulletproof jacket and the flamethrower. It's like, and you feel like you're running a haunted house over and over again, which is fun, but like whoever nails that, and that's something Rockstar did with the GTA cities, it's like really making those worlds feel like, shit, I haven't seen that before. And actually Origins does some stuff, to get back to my Origins bullshit. Last night I was doing one of them treasure chests underwater, like in a sunken boat. And above me there was like a brouhaha between like one of those little taxi boats and like an alligator. The boat got smashed and like sunk and crushed me, killing me. I was killed by the falling boat underwater.
It's a good moment.
It was funny, and like Rachel and I were playing as well, and like I was hijacking a trireme just going and messing with the people on it, and I was like up in the mast, like shooting my fire arrows at piles of hay, and like the people on the boat, like one caught fire, another one was like ran over like horrified to look at it, and other people started like jumping off the boat because it was burning, and it was really like, I don't know, like I'm on a complete tangent now, but like I think the beauty of any worlds where it's like, here's this great city, is like you have to make it not feel like these are cardboard pop-ups, that emergent shit is happening.
I agree, and I think taking that to a big multiplayer game, like Ubisoft's open worlds are getting pretty good at that already. Like you said, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry 5, from what I've played, is pretty damn good at like having weird shit happen.
You said there was almost too much.
Too much. I think Far Cry 5 is like one extreme, but when it works, it's always funny or interesting in some way.
The greatest thing I can say about AC Origins is that it has scratched the itch that The Witcher 3 left me. Like, that's how good I think it is.
It's made in a very similar mold.
Yeah. They clearly played a lot of that.
Oh, definitely. A couple more things here. We had some contributions from Omri Petit, who is one of our big division guys. He makes an argument for giving more enemies the hunter AI. And I don't know if you played against a lot of hunters. They were like really difficult.
Yeah, you come across them in survival, and I think they've added them to underground now actually as well. In 1.7, you cut they're rough. Like I panic as soon as I see them as well, because I get both excited by the fact that they drop good loot, and then nervous that I'm not spec'd right to deal with the situation, and then they kill me. Yeah,
so I hope they return, or at least they like play around, because the original games, the factions in the original game were like different in the way they behaved and sort of attacked you, but they were all just kind of dudes hiding behind cover and shooting.
I love the fact that it's rare as well. Like, you know, the fact it doesn't happen every mission means when it does, you're like,
holy shit. So I hope they, some more variety in enemy AI and keep those guys. Here's one I wrote. Well, obviously a much simpler menu system, I think. Simplify that junk, because it is a nightmare. But I think that's probably a given.
Didn't you mean inventory rather than menu?
Yes.
Inventory management is garbo in it. Like,
it's so awful.
My box, it's not a box, is it? It is a box.
It's
you know what I mean? Like your storage box. Holy shit! Like half the game is like managing that stuff, because I'm always like, you never want to like dismantle stuff you think is going to be valuable. So I end up like stacking mods onto weapons just to store them. And then never using them, so it's like a false economy. And like, I was glad they brought in like the gear score thing, so you at least had a sense when something dropped of like what its relative value. Because I'll be like comparing two like lightweight M4s and going, I don't know which is the good one. So that's easier to manage now, but yeah, like that's bad and that can use a lot of work.
Here's a long shot for me, and you're gonna hate this, but a battle royale mode.
No, I love it.
You do?
Yeah. I've seen that suggested before for the division. Yeah, I think it. We joked about it with Destiny, but I think it's really lends itself well to the division.
Well, I mean, the survival is that what it's called? Survival mode was sort of a small scale battle royale in which you would go into this big cold.
I'd like to be able to do like a purely PvE one of those as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't always want that stress of like having to deal with real people, you look at the feedback from the Dark Zone. A lot of people did not like getting griefed in there. Like, even though that was kind of the point of it, a lot of people were really off put by it. But the fact they wanted to loot, but they didn't want to be griefed. I think like having like, imagine like a cut down battle royale mode where there's like 50 AI things as well. I still think you should do the PvP one, but I'm saying for babies like me, you had 50 AI things. 5 of them were hunter quality and the rest are kind of like scaling, and you have to like last in there as long as you can, and you get loot according to how many you eliminate. Like, I'd play the hell out of that.
Yeah, so Division had like near the end they got really good with sort of the variety of PvP modes, so it'd be nice to see them riff
Underground I used to play all the time. I would just try and like solo a hard one, and like I just found it, especially the fact that you could kind of take it at your own pace. You could just kind of like look at my phone or whatever.
You got to know they're thinking about Battle Royale though, right?
I'd be surprised. I mean, Ubisoft are smart. I'd be surprised if they aren't.
I think it would be cool to go in with loot, your own kind of gear, scale it obviously, but you go in with your signature outfit and skills, and
well, it lends itself already to playing as teams as well, right?
Yeah, so I think that'd be pretty neat. Anything else come to mind?
What else?
Story, obviously, like maybe tie up some loose ends for those people. Omri argues for maybe a stealth system. I'm not dying for that personally.
Omri, please.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be good in a pinch, or
vehicles perhaps limited. I think there's vehicles maybe ruins the vibe of being in a city without gas and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see whether when do they set it? Do they set it like a couple of years after the dollar flu? Do they do it like precursor to the dollar flu, like when it's happening or something?
It's so open ended. They did barely. I don't think they even finished the story in the first one truly.
Not really.
Because I think they had to clearly
pivot. There was like that bad agent.
Yeah, there's the bad guy who did the disease stuff and maybe
and then he
died.
was at the end. But am I really the bad guy?
Yeah. So I don't know. Obviously, I think if anything, they will need a good cadence of updates and sort of a good.
Yeah, because the same studio is also making the Avatar game, which gives me slight worries. But
yeah, who knows? But either way,
that's it. They are.
Yes, massive. Very happy that it's coming. Surprisingly happy.
I felt the same way. Like when it was announced, I was like, oh, I wasn't sure we'd actually get this, even though like naive really because it sold gangbusters. So like logically, it should always get a sequel, even though it had like some substantial growing pains after that. But yeah, when I saw the announcement, I think I was traveling, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, and it's good. To, I certainly felt more excited about that than probably I did about the new card.
Oh, I thought you said card game. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay. Whoa. Let's walk it back. Yeah. Division 2. Hope to find more. We're gonna find out more at E3. So hang in until then, June 14th or something like that. A couple months. It's gonna fly by. Let's move on to take some questions from the chat. We do prioritize questions from our club members, and you can find out more at club.pcgamer.com. The PC Gamer Club is a pretty cool, cheap subscription service where you get a digital subscription to the magazine, you get a digital RPG handbook, you get an ad-free experience on the site. You get
to hang out with us in Discord.
Yeah, our Discord it's growing and changing all the time, and we have a good group of regulars in there. I'm teaming up with Vermintide folks from time to time, and it's just a good place to hang out. I keep it open all the time.
I feel like I need to explain that I keep looking up in the sky like this because we have a monitor of our faces up on the wall, so it looks like I'm constantly like gazing up to gazing up in the sky.
I know, and I'm looking over here because I have this monitor. It's not the greatest setup, but it does the trick. Did I miss anything? You get some good high glossy JPEGs of high resolution glossy JPEGs of Tub Geralt.
Yeah.
And
perfect wallpaper.
Free game each month. If we have extra beta keys or we get beta keys in advance for a cool game coming out, we'll throw them at the club members first.
Yeah, we usually manage to send out a couple of things each month. Yeah. One game at least is guaranteed, and then we try and get some additional stuff to kind of surprise you with. So
yeah,
that's good. I'm a member with my own money, so
that's a good cadence.
Join me in there.
And we quick mention, we are now kind of moving into getting some PC Gamer specific in-game items for some games. So we have a skin in Elite and Rising Storm. We have some tattoos and a cool helmet. And we hope to add more over time. So club.pcgamer.com. Let's take some questions. If you have them in Twitch, you can tag PC Gamer in chat. But I'm going to read some that I got from the Discord earlier. So get those in. Janrin opens up with an artifact.
I've played Destiny with Yanrin.
Oh yeah, Yanrin. Artifact was the news for today, or the week, we might say. But then shifts. Place your bet on humanoids. Do you think this would be a great way to ask the real question? Thoughts on the death of Stephen Hawking? It's real sad. Not totally gaming related, but
that's a big one.
In memoriam. In memoriam.
Yeah. I wish I understood his ideas better enough that I could make some salient point about them.
Too.
But clearly a great man. Yeah. I think I was very proud to see him back home doing battle with the NHS Secretary Jeremy Hunt. I love to see like someone who's an incredible intellect is that like putting someone like Hunt to the sword over like the support for the health service. So I think like Hawking was a guy who gave showed a lot of people what can be done despite like some obvious setbacks in life, and makes me feel pretty small, his achievements, obviously. Of course he does. He's Stephen Hawking. What made him fucking say? But yeah, thanks, Jan. You trapped.
You have important things to say about card games, Tim. So don't minimize yourself too much. But yeah, rest in peace, Steve. Next question. Nick Manley asks, with Valve back in game-making mode, allegedly, what do you and Tim each want to see Valve make next? Well, besides Artifact, besides card games, do you have anything on your wish list?
Well, I wouldn't say no to another Portal game.
I wouldn't either. It's hard for me to like. I think what I want. I don't know what I want from Valve next is the problem, because I want another Portal.
You don't tell Willy Wonka what flavored chocolate bar you want, right?
Perfect.
You let Wonka make it.
Yeah,
because your idea is going to be dumb compared to his idea.
Exactly. So whatever Valve makes next, I'm sure I will appreciate in some way, and I look forward to whatever that is. I know they're still doing VR stuff, and they're making.
I guess I would like them to see. It reminded me that when I was doing the tour, they showed us around, and they had like amongst their trophy cabinet a golden crowbar that had been given to them at the time of Half-Life 1 shipping. But it hadn't come from Sierra, which was the publisher. It had come from, like, I think a guy at Valve at the time. He was like, well, we didn't get anything from them, so I'll make us one ourselves. And it said, like, to Valve for raising the bar on first-person action games.
Yeah.
I would love to see them make any sort of first-person action game of their choosing again.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't need to be Half-Life, but like just something that was like, and then maybe they would feel like they were repeating themselves. They talked about, you know, not just in the tour I was on, but like on other times, how each of their projects is about making a great game, but also solving like an intellectual question around games they've kind of got. And so you can see how that kind of plays into something like Artifact. They want to like understand doing a trading digital game in the digital space.
I think like maybe less tied to Steam in the marketplace is they were toying around with and have a history of toying around with narrative design in games and procedural narration and like how does a game tell a story over and over, or how can it tell it in different ways or unique ways. And I bet, I mean, I think Half-Life 3 was like probably trying to, you know, a rendition or 4 of Half-Life 3 was like trying to address that and was bad. I know that they were working on, in partnership with, oh gosh, Arcane, was it them, on a game called The Crossing, which was very, maybe like over a decade ago.
Dishonored guys?
Yeah, which was an attempt to, or they were making it in Source, excuse me, and then maybe consulted with Valve. A game that like a person would be the hero in the game, but then other players would be the antagonists, and like, you know, as they're moving through a linear story. That was like an early idea.
And then they realized people are assholes.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a suck.
I like the idea of it.
Yeah, me too. But so there's sort of a history or a legacy there of addressing that question. I wouldn't doubt. That's what I want to see. I want to see like
cool.
what their thing is. But good question. Holy cow. This is sort of a loaded one. Two-parter. Roll SK asks, Sea of Thieves launches this coming week, so the 20th, I believe, next week. We'll have our top pirates on it. I know Chris and Tyler have been digging it quite a bit in the betas. And he says, having played roughly 50 hours of the beta, I can only say that it's one of the most fun multiplayer games I've ever played with friends. Question is, what are your opinions on Sea of Thieves? What do you think makes it so special, if you do, in terms of group play? So, did you get in there and play any pirate with us?
Yeah, not much, but I played some. So I'm glad he said was it he or she?
I don't know.
I'm glad they said that it was like they'd spent 50 hours in it, because I think after I played some of the beta and I watched a bunch of it on Twitch as well. Like I think the one concern I heard keep coming back was that people liked the core loop, but whether the loop would be like varied enough to keep people coming back and trying different stuff, or experiencing different stuff. So hopefully there will be enough for that, because I think again otherwise it will fall into the same trap as games like Division and Destiny, where you're just doing the same shit over and over again. But like as to like what the appeal is, like I would agree the appeal is cool, and I think it's like the basic fantasy of be a pirate with your buddies is so easy to explain and so like inherently I think attractive that the fact that they deliver on that means the game is fun. I think that's how fun is almost like derived. I went to, can I say like a boring like, analogy?
Yeah.
So like I went to a talk, I've talked about this before a bit, but I went to a really good talk at the Develop Conference in Brighton a few years ago by Bizarre Creations, who had made Blur for Activision and had also done the Project Gotham games, I think. And they talked about why Blur had been a failure, and they said that like the fundamental problem with it was that it was an incongruous like power fantasy. The fantasy was, here's regular world cars, but we put lasers on them. And like, it's not really, I guess James Bond it kind of happens, but it was kind of like that mishmash of real with like cartoon sci-fi was not attractive to people, because that's not a power fantasy you already have. And when you're driving around in your like Renault Clio, you don't think like, oh, I wish there were lasers on it. Or maybe you do, but like most people don't. And they contrasted that with something like Assassin's Creed, where the power fantasy is kill important historical figures, right? Yeah. Like immediately you go like, that's cool.
I'm down.
Yeah, that sounds sweet. Like be time travel assassin. Like you understand it straight away. So I think that I think to go back to Sea of Thieves, it's the simplicity and universality of that premise that is what makes it so appealing. And I'm definitely going to be playing it.
Yeah, I think that like just to quickly add on to your answer is one thing I think that makes it successful. A very minor thing that goes a long way is that there are a lot of items in that game and tools that are there only for the purpose of having fun, or like they don't serve a real purpose. There's instruments you can just play tunes with your friends and they
Flavor
sync up.
is the purpose.
Yeah, and there are props, and I think a lot of games, multiplayer games, Tyler and I have talked about this a bit, like could afford to just have objects in the game that are there for the purpose of
Go
fun.
back to what you were saying about
Yeah.
Fortnite and PUBG. People love emotes, right? You
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't need an emote, but it just makes you feel like, you know, it lets you play with that world a bit more because something happens. You go, all right, here's my drop the mic emote, or like, here's my I'm crying emote.
Yeah, just you get to be more expressive. And
Yeah.
the more ways to be expressive in a game, the better.
The Blur guy described putting the lasers on the cars as like he'd put bacon into cornflakes. There were two things that were good, but they should not have been put together.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree. And there's a follow-up to that question that I don't know. I don't think we can answer because it's literally every question ever. But I want to read it anyway because it's fun. And what are your predictions for the impact on the gaming market as a whole?
Oh, what? Of Sea of Thieves?
AKA The Witcher 3 influencing Breath of the Wild and other open world games like ACO, PUBG spawning a bunch of other so he's just asking every question there ever was about games. And I don't think we can really answer that, but maybe like what trends do we see emerging next year? What are going to be the things that are still in our minds or emerging, at least brand new?
I think what you've always seen, like I remember seeing this most pointedly when GTA landed, that you didn't really see the copycats really arrive in full force.
Yeah.
It took a couple of years because there's the drag of something being a success to then like someone else being able to implement it because games take X amount of time to happen. The difference with something like Fortnite and PUBG is that they already had like a framework they could then like quite cleverly repurpose. But I think like in terms of like from the ground up battle royale, because I think battle royale is going to be like one that is going to keep spawning imitators. But I think we won't see true rivals for probably another like 12 months at least.
No,
I think you'll see games trying to do it, but I think like you say, if Division 2 wanted to incorporate it, they're going to announce it at this E3 and then it won't come out until next November. So you're looking at like over a year away before that lands, and that's just one example. I'm sure there's other battle royale games out there being made right now, but they won't hit. So there's always this drag effect between the megaton dropping of a game that changes a paradigm. I can't believe I said paradigm change. And then the actual kind of the second wave of copycats.
And I think, I mean, a recent example is Stardew Valley came out like, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And in the last, like, eerily almost, in the last, like, few months, we've seen so many Stardew Valley likes just drop. And for a game of that scale, like, think about how long that's taken. And, you know, big studios, they need that, like you said, that drag to respond and articulate their own sort of design.
Yeah, I mean, the exception might be something like, because there's also the other thing to factor in is like how hard is it to replicate the achievement, right?
Yeah.
We look at something like Kingdom Come, even if a bunch of indie studios went, well, super, in inverted commas, realistic or realistic feeling first-person RPGs are pretty popular. We should make one of those. Like, you need a very specific skill set and set of resources to be able to pull that off, and like willpower. So like I don't, you know, the same reason Skyrim didn't spawn 20 other Skyrims because you just couldn't.
Yep. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think there's going to be. I guess we're focusing on battle royale here.
I
sort of
predict
represents
battle royale will keep being copied, and Kingdom Come won't be copied.
No,
I don't think it can
Kingdom
be.
Come. It's kind of a singular thing. Yeah, expect more battle royales.
We've got any easier questions, James?
No, we do not.
What's chat got?
Chat didn't give me any because chat's being lazy. But we do have some more from the Discord. You guys aren't being lazy. I'm sorry. Silent Marine in the chat asks, on the back of Artifact, do you think Valve charging for the base game means there will likely be, or Valve intends, a higher barrier to entry as opposed to Hearthstone?
It's definitely higher than free, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then if that base game gets you 100 of the 280 cards, or maybe more, then maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if otherwise you'd have to still spend. I guess you could grind. You get the starter decks in Hearthstone, and you can grind out from there. But God, that's like you have to factor in that I'm like a man now at 40 years old with no children. So like paying for this game is going to be probably like not something I'm going to mind doing.
Yeah.
Because I would expect it to give me like enough entertainment over the kind of coming months and years.
Okay.
But I think like the fact that there's a base. So wait, I do have a point to make about this. So I think that there's a base price is good because for that kind of community to succeed, i.e. a game that is much more focused on complexity and depth, You really want a player base, I think, who's kind of committed to actually trying to learn it and get something out of it, rather than like, imagine a game that's complex and everyone who plays Hearthstone plays it for like 24 hours, right? That's going to be a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people are going to come away with, I think, a bad experience of going, I didn't enjoy that, it was way too hard. Whereas I think if you've paid for it, you're kind of mentally on board with like, right, we're in, I'm going to spend like a week learning this, I'm going to watch stuff about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it sets up an expectation around what your experience is going to be like versus a free-to-play game. Neil was very kind of pointed on, with free-to-play, if the value of something is kind of effectively zero, then it's also like, ultimately, like it devalues your time as well. It kind of has to, in the way it kind of mechanically works. He put it much better than I did, but some of those quotes are on the site.
Cool. Yeah, go read the story for more on that, and I'll link to it one more time in the chat. But yeah, I think at least for me, I am, even though it looks more complex, I am more willing to give it the time of day because I think
you might dig the complexity, honestly.
I might dig it because I sort of, I don't know, maybe it's just there's something about the Hearthstone, at least what I glean from you guys talking about it, the Hearthstone meta is like, if you see a deck, like you can reasonably expect how to respond to it. Like oh, they're going to play this shit, or they're going to do this like weird combination of words I don't understand or know. And just the extra layers and split attention of Artifact is like, okay, maybe I can, just by knowing the principles of the game, outwit someone who has these cards.
Yeah, Hearthstone matchups tend to play out. Like I say, it's been less like this recently because it has been I think it has been a more kind of considered slower meta with like some big control decks. But I think like the hope would be that Artifact matches play out with a greater variety because of the sheer amount that's going on as much as anything.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about that. We'll take one more question here. JBJ Blaze asks, do either of you look forward to Tomb Raider coming out this week in theaters? There's a movie. I don't know if you were aware. But
No.
he says he plans to see it himself, even if it does turn out to be the quality of the past video game movies.
Wes has already seen it.
Yeah.
I think Wes's response was, well, that sure was a Tomb Raider film. He didn't hate it, but he didn't especially like it, which is about the most Wes response to anything I can imagine.
So just total indifference.
I don't know. Like, I just don't really have any like. I think Alicia Vikander is a really good actress. Like, she's amazing in Ex Machina.
Yeah.
But I just have no real desire to see Lara Croft doing anything on the screen. Like, as a character, like, what is she about? Like, oh, she's sad about her dad. She's rich. She likes exploring tombs. Like, there's so little to her. I mean, she was interesting culturally as an icon because in the 90s there weren't, a ton of like female-fronted games. Probably still not enough now. But like, do we need like the movie version of that? I feel like if you were going to do it at all, you'd almost be better off like making it kind of a comedy and making it fun.
Yeah.
Whereas like playing it serious, I know the more recent games have been serious, but it just seems so boring to me.
Oh man. Well, to be honest, I think the problem begins with how so serious the games are as well.
Yeah.
They are just, I hate the stories in those
New ones.
They are. I think the second one I still think is probably one of the worst characterizations in a video game I've ever experienced. And to like, use that as a starting point for a film that is based on I just can't, I have no desire, zero desire.
What would you like to see a movie based on?
Oh man. Oh, you know what I said? Because we wrote about this, I think last week for our weekend question. And my response was they should make an anime out of Dragon Ball Z Fighters, but they should also make, I think, a Dishonored like show with like HBO level quality, or maybe a series of movies about that focuses less on the assassinations and stuff, but more on the politics and drama of maybe the class
I'm going to say
divisions.
that show would be a big old flop.
It would be, but hey, in my mind's eye, it's exciting, and I don't know, get some British actors I've seen in Doctor Who or whatever to play more serious roles and fucking stamp it with HBO and
nice.
I don't know. I don't produce things. This is why I don't produce things. So, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for joining us. You can always catch us on twitch.tv/PCGamer at 1 p.m. every Wednesday for the PC Gamer Show. You can catch us after the fact at youtube.com/PCGamer and PCGamer.com/tag/podcast if you want to find links to our iTunes subscription or just download the MP3 on, put it on your MP3 player, I guess. Are people still doing that?
Give us some more questions next time, chat. Don't be scared.
Yeah, come on. It's all right. It's all right. But we appreciate you guys hanging out and asking the questions you did and sticking around watching us. And until next week, we'll see you then.